Wow, now that is some wonderfully full-blooded scoring, Chuck. I just really enjoyed that. Like there's something so vital and rich about your approach, and I really love the way that you use the lower range of the orchestra and just dig into it. It's and partially is it's because there's no diminuendo coming after this fortissimo right in here, which is something that you might have wanted to adjust, but still, I mean, it works. If that's what you want, it's going to work. Okay, and I just want to comment now, and that is that I really appreciate all of your comments that you have left on some of these evaluation videos and on some of my other videos leading up to this. Your insights are very welcome, and your attitude is fantastic. So it's great to include you in this set of evaluations. It's just so much fun. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to comment on, and this is sort of like a little mental asterisk or kind of note for later, and that is that I'm seeing a lot of entries that are, marked, say, con brio or vivo or whatever, and the tempo is quite a bit slower than the traditional way of performing this, right? What Falla wanted was vivace, right? Or he wanted it to be very lively, and he wanted it to be to be very dancey, right? So a lot of these are not dancey, and I mean, like, say, sometimes the approach works pretty well on the first page. I think we had an entry recently that had this beautiful rolling kind of, it really felt almost like a page from Carmen. It had this just wonderful kind of rolling, rumbling, slower tempo. And I mean, that worked pretty good on the first screen, but then moving on to the next section, right? That's always the question. Will that tempo, with all of the little stretches and so on, do they make any sense, right? So I'm going to sort of kick off as an argument to say the fluctuations of tempo make less sense when you speed the entire, or when you slow the entire piece down, right? So that is something to watch out for. Okay, so just a few technical notes before I dive into the evaluation criteria. And one of them is, like, once you establish the pattern, right, then you don't need to restate it. Some of this might be copy paste, right? But like, once you tell the players, like, you just want a bunch of down bows, they get it, right? And in fact, they might do this anyways, just down, 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 and then go down, up, down, 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 right? It just has the same, you just have that consistency. There is one little danger about this, okay? And that is that if you have a bunch of down bows all in the row, there is a risk that things will become a little mechanical, right? They'll become a little sort of predictable and repetitive. And sometimes you want that sense of repetition, you want that sense of drive, like, say, in Borodin, who's, has some very famous passages of all down bows, and Stravinsky even more. So I mean, there is a place for it, right? And that place for it might very well be here. But I'm just saying, caution, don't always do that when you have a row of emphatic notes, all right? Because it can just make things seem a little... I mean, there are some there are some things that have that sort of very expressive, very straightforward driving kind of separated notes in some pieces, and you go and watch it on YouTube, like a live performance of it, and you'll see that the string players are going up and down, and it's perfectly fine, right? So it doesn't have to be this way, but so just kind of a warning. And the other thing too is that like ending with a staccato, right, and an accent, and there's a sort of a connotation of kind of a leaping sound here. So it we also have that to contend with too, which is not necessarily like the sort of driving altalone sort of bowing, just where everything is just this big straight zooming kind of bowing, is not exactly a staccato, right? It's more of a tenuto. Okay, so it's pretty much weight in the strings, and then a little bit of flute and oboe, atu, harmonizing the top right in there. And it's something that you could have added here is the fact that there is the connotation of a held E, right? So some people added that. I added that. It's because in the piano part, right, the E is going to continue to sound after the grace note has been played. So so if it's in there in the sound picture of the piano, then possibly Falla would have included it going forwards if he had orchestrated it, right? So that's the possibility there. Now here you're keeping the yum bum 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 very sparse, like not playing it as an octave, just like as a single line, doubling flute, oboe, and strings or violin, first violin, right? So yum yum yum, and I like this right in here, just adding this little harmonic riff right in here, and then extending it out. There's the problem that you're running into here is that you're putting a huge amount of weight on the lower part of this harmony, right? And there's nothing wrong with having maybe the trumpets doubling the clarinets here, or maybe having the first and third horn jumping up and doubling the upper clarinets. I mean, that high D at forte accented staccato, that translates to an A for first horn, and that's no big deal, right? But maybe it's too powerful for you. I don't know, but like for what you envision for your for that particular riff, maybe it brings it out too much. So, but that would be one way of addressing one of our evaluation criteria, and that is the thematic material repeating often, possibly sounding repetitive, right? So like by emboldening this, right? And you're even adding strings in here as well. Even just a simple addition of maybe even timpani underneath that, right? Just to make it a little bit bigger, to expand it, is enough to vary between the two groups and not make them feel so copy pasted, right? And then see, like right here with these other sections, you avoid that because you are magnifying the role of the winds in the accompaniment, and you're setting things up to go forwards with this big push. All right. One thing that I'm seeing here, by the way, great to have that big punch right at the beginning. I like that a lot. One thing that we have to contend with, I'm seeing a lot of people run up, way, way high up to these, to like a natural harmonic. And without sort of judging how realistic that is, the thing that you need to understand is, like in a sort of a fortissimo passage, you hear things like solo violin parts and violin concerto things where they'll throw in the occasional natural harmonic at the end of a run and so on. And that's all right for them, but when you have to deal with a lot of doubling and a lot of competition, sometimes there will be something like this, and there will be like big brass underneath it, and so on. It's sort of a weaker sound, right? It's better to have a fingered sound. Now, this is really asking the first violinists to go up as as high as they can go. I mean, I think a fingered F, maybe G, like and of course you're approaching it by steps, so it's not unreasonable. Okay, but is it musical? Right? Is it really all that strong at the very very highest reaches? Is it just kind of more screechy? That is why you're seeing a lot of people jump down the octave, and then like they'll have the seconds, the first and the seconds running up together in octaves like this. And here you've got kind of a quadruple octave here with all of the strings stacked up and the winds as well doubling, which is fine. But you'll see the first violinist jump down and then doubling the second violinist, and then letting the overtones from all the other parts do the work as the piccolo keeps going up, right? So you don't have any piccolo in this, so you kind of can't get that upper line, right? So, I mean, it's possible, but it's just not the prettiest sound, right? It's not the most ideal sound. Now, soaringly high string scoring can be great, but like one of the great examples of this is the Romeo and Juliet overture by Tchaikovsky. Where he's got that ba, 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 and he's really sending his violins up into the stratosphere, but he's got the piccolo to sort of secure their sound and to sweeten it a little bit. So yeah, so just really watch out about that. It's not that it's not really technically possible. It's just that it's not the greatest sound. Okay, and then all this divisi in here, that's all good. It's a bit of a... Okay, so you're running into a similar problem, okay? So here I would say, if you're going to throw this to sort of a divisi kind of a thing, then it would really be better to have the first violins playing E octaves, and the second violin just to be playing this single note right in here, C, B, B flat, the single line. And the reason for that is the sixth is one of the easiest things to finger on the fingerboard of any string instrument, playing a double stop, except for like double basses. Then the fifth, when you get to the fifth, you have a situation where you have your second finger holding down the string, holding down the lower string, and your first finger, saying as in your pointer, is holding down the lower string, and your second finger, your middle finger, is holding down the upper string. And then when you get to a perfect fifth, that middle finger has to ease its way back so that the two fingertips are parallel, which is tricky in terms of getting the intonation exactly right, especially in a faster passage like this. But then, at this point, the two fingers have to flip, right? And I mean, a good professional player will be able to do it, but it's just like you're just building in some hassle, right? You're building in the hassle factor for your players. Like, going from a fifth to a smaller interval, like the same thing that you've got right in here, right? You've got a C fifth in your violas, and then you're going to a C fourth, right? So the players will start off with their fingers sort of cramped together, and then they're going to have to do a slight flip to get this down right in there. So I'd just say, it's not impossible. It's not even unlikely, but it's just uncomfortable and kind of weird, right? So watch out for little details like that. So let's also go back to our evaluation criteria and look at this in that respect. You are running up to the end of this, and then you're starting the next phrase, right? And it is, is it differentiated enough in its scoring to not necessarily, be kind of relentlessly upper middle register kind of scoring. And I think that it's fine because you have a bigger spread across the page. So that's not a huge concern. I like the way that you leave a little bit of a breath. Yep, rest, da 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 da, rest, da 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 da. Right? I think that sets things up pretty well. Maintaining a driving staccato and transitioning smoothly into the next passage, more or less, yes. However, your mock-up is telling you, if you're using Note Performer like me, your mock-up is telling you that this is all going to transition really, really smoothly. However, in real life, these at fortissimo, these parts coming to an end will leave a gap that the overtones of furiously played strings will not fill, right? So maybe this got left out, this bar got left out by accident, but I would say continue on. If you really want this to be a smooth transition to section B, continue on with the furious staccato, right? Maybe you could go down to single players or something, or maybe you could throw in some diminuendo. Maybe you could change a few things about this. But I would say that's the biggest problem right in here is that the mock-up is lying to you and telling you that the sudden dropping out of these winds and brass is going to feel natural as the lower strings on each string instrument start to dig in very ferociously. It's not going to be that smooth. Now here, I really, really like this powerful muscular scoring. This bum 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 da 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 dum. It's really reminiscent of the beginning. And what's cool about the beginning is that you didn't use up that context of that big, huge, full tutti scoring, right? And by scoring it out in this way, which is more reminiscent of how maybe another entry would have started. By scoring it out in this big way and also having that very leaping bass line, it really feels fresh and different rather than just being a flashback to the beginning. And, cool timpani in here. I like that a lot. So it's a bit bulky in terms of like dealing with the whole issue of closely spaced melodies, overlapping accompaniment figures, highlighting inner voices and stuff. It's you have so much power in these big chords that it doesn't really make sense to highlight a lot of those things. But what I would say is that if you really want these functions in here to be clearer, this then they're going to require some doubling. Like you throw in some doubling here with the bassoons, right? But right in here, this is going to be kind of woefully undermuscular, right? So it's just a question of like which instrument could possibly play along with the violas and the first violins that are sort of, is there something that is part of an existing arc, or is there one of the notes in here that is part of an arc, or could one be sacrificed, right? Could you give up a note? And I would say like probably clarinet. It would be the most ideal to throw in there, right? So you have, first of all, you'd have a differentiation between the doubling of bassoon and doubling of clarinet. Secondly, you can sacrifice this sounding B flat in your A clarinet. By the way, kind of cool use of A clarinet in this. it really does sort of fit the that it's just kind of the natural scale of the instrument. Throwing in a couple of flats here and there, but it really just kind of does fit that kind of like E Phrygian and A Phrygian that are in some of these passages really nicely. Okay, now keeping the triplets from overwhelming the melodic line. Okay, so like whenever you are throwing in A2 horns and violas, the horns win, right? Especially if you are still scored, if this is still fortissimo, right? What if the horns were like mezzo piano here, and the violas were forte or mezzo forte, right? And you kept your brass 1 degree under dynamically of what was going on in the strings, and you sort of marked your entrances a little bit better in terms of like what the dynamic is when you come back in, say for trombones especially, right? Because like here, like they're thinking, hey, we're fortissimo, and like here it's like, hey, we're still fortissimo, but we're gonna get a little softer. And I guess maybe we're probably still fortissimo, and now we're gonna get a little softer again, and they're just gonna stick out, without more guidance, they're gonna stick out like a sore thumb. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you're going into a cooler passage here, right? And you want your melody to come out here. I mean, it's okay. I don't think you need A2 horns. First of all right. So, and second of all, this is the melody, so it should go to the first horn. So, first horn doubling, second violins. That is all fine. Okay, and then this could be played by your third horn player. So just swap the staves and just switch it down to a single horn, and then have it 1 dynamic degree under, and then, and right in here, how about just lose the accents, throw in some diminuendo, so you're setting up this passage to be softer, right? One thing I really do like here is the castanets. I think that is really, really awesome. It's a lovely little pattern, true to the idiom from which this is taken, and and so widely reaching left-hand patterns. You're basically having just doubling in both instruments. You're making use of some open strings here and there, and so on. It's just built right into the part. And I kind of think it's cool that you stick with arco staccato until the very end, and you go to pizzicato, and you keep it from getting too low. I think that works out really, really well. See, so like here you're saying 1 and 3. So yeah, just swap the two, have your first and your third, just take the entire thing from before. And I think it'd be a lot more comfortable. The only problem I see here, especially in context with the evaluation criteria, is the sense of keeping the textural contours fresh and not too much the same, right? So that was something that I was very concerned about. I didn't want the passage to go on for too long without having some kind of freshness, some kind of conversation, some kind of progression of the texture. Now, progressing the texture doesn't have to mean that you are changing from strings to winds to brass to, it doesn't have to be like that, but it has to mean that like something about the color is moving forwards, right? Rather than staying the same and getting softer, right? So I would say that is something that you could possibly add to this or possibly bring into this if you so chose. If you're going to work on this, and who knows where some of these arrangements are going to end up. So yeah, just a thoroughly enjoyable score to look at, and I really appreciate you bringing it in, and just your whole presence in the community, and this what you're contributing in terms of support for the channel. You're to a certain extent, like the people who support the channel, kind of the future of the channel really belongs to them to a certain degree, and how they can help me bring it forward, as it does to all the people out there who are viewing it. I'm doing this all for you guys, and your suggestions and your support and your comments are all helping to shape how this channel can serve you better in the future and bring you more of what you need to move forward with your training and build your craft. And I'll be really surprised by this. I'll have pro orchestrators who I feel I've learned a lot from listening to their works, and they will say, hey, I learned a lot from watching that one video that you did. So like, I'll think, wow, okay, well, I was just commenting on something I heard from another orchestrator. So what's great about the Orchestration Online channel is how it's kind of serving as a nexus to bring people together who are who have professional level talent, and are getting to the point where they're going to have professional level connections and jobs and gigs and stuff like that. So I see that in a lot of these entries, and it's just, I just feel like I'm looking at the future of orchestration in people who are bringing me their scores and who maybe are contributing for the first time, or just really kind of picking up some steam in their own careers and their own projects and stuff. So it just really is a blessing, and I feel grateful for it every day that I get up and do these. It is an effort to look at all these scores, but it is also a huge joy and just a huge kick, just to see, what I feel is just like the best of what's out there in terms of people getting their act together, right? So just think about some of those suggestions that I had there, Chuck, and thank you again for being a part of it all. And everybody out there watching this, whether you're supporting on Patreon or not, your viewership means a lot to me, and your comments and suggestions and things. And speaking of which, if you are a semi-brev supporter, please leave a comment on Chuck's video, as I know he's going to leave on yours, because you're all kind of part of that same group on Patreon and here on YouTube. So it would be really great if you guys could give each other feedback. It really means a lot. So with that, I am just going to see if I can get another evaluation or two out before those builders come here and start banging around upstairs. Thanks everybody. I'll see you really soon.